Welcome back to more FPL content. This will be my team selection for Double Gameweek 24. I've only got one free transfer and a triple up in Liverpool already, but no one from the Toffees just yet. But I'll discuss some transfer plans to maybe add some more Double Gameweek assets whilst navigating future blanks and doubles, as well as all of the game weeks in between in game weeks 25, 26, 27, and 28, of course. And on screen you can see the FPL Dylan League. If you haven't joined it already, there is a link in the description below. The same goes for my Twitter and Instagram, Blue Sky, the Discord server, Drafthound, as well as Spotify. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. If you want to see a chip strategy guide or a video discussing the Assistant Manager Booster in detail, then let me know down in the comment section below. I did discuss it briefly towards the end of the Transfers podcast, where I also highlight the best Liverpool and Everton players for the double, and also the players to buy, hold, sell and skip in Double Gameweek 24 who don't have a double this week. But let's get straight into this with my Gameweek 23 performance and review. And unfortunately, I made a goalkeeper transfer just 2 weeks ago and it hasn't paid off at all. Sells has conceded 7 goals in those 2 game weeks, twice to Southampton when Nottingham Forest were 3-0 up, and then 5 to Bournemouth in the early kickoff of Gameweek 23. So that's been a massive disappointment, and I was very close to buying Jordan Pickford instead, and that would have been the best course of action for my team. So I made a mistake with my goalkeeper move. I still think Sells is a good long-term asset, but Forest have been beaten comprehensively on multiple occasions this season against Arsenal, Man City, and now Bournemouth. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. Otherwise, Sells could prove to be a very bad transfer from my particular point of view. As for my defenders, though, it was slightly better with Trent getting an assist, but that's pretty much it because Veltman and Robinson both blanked and failed to keep a clean sheet in 1-0 losses at home to their respective opponents, Everton and Manchester United. But Trent played particularly well. He hit the crossbar. On another day, it could have been a massive haul, and towards the end of that Liverpool-Ipswich Town game, the Reds conceded to Jacob Greaves, so that was a bit disappointing. It could have been a mega haul there for Trent, Konate and Van Dijk, particularly in the case, of course, of Trent Alexander-Arnold. My midfield, though, was even better, with Mohamed Salah returning as my captain. Cole Palmer blanked and was very disappointing, though, against Manchester City, his former club, whilst Brian Mbeumo scored a retaken penalty and was fortuitous from that perspective. But at the same time, towards the end of the match, Opta kind of counted a big chance miss from Mbeumo, but then rectified it. But unfortunately with FPL and the way the bonus point system works and the fact that they pretty much allocate it and modify things towards the end of the game week, unfortunately Mbeumo won't have those bonus points, so it's just 7 overall. But with the luck of the penalty, you could say maybe that's about enough and we'll take that return. As for Anthony Gordon, he got an assist in a 3-1 win against Southampton, but he has been a bit underwhelming since I bought him in, and ultimately I've been too late to the party. I've recommended him for months now, but I only bought him 2 weeks ago, and it hasn't been great just yet, but there are some decent fixtures from an attacking perspective coming up, like Fulham at home and Man City away. But my front three was the star of the show and the best thing about my team. Alexander Isak was my vice-captain. He got a brace against Southampton to put Newcastle back on track, whilst Cody Gakpo, one of my new signings alongside Trent Alexander-Arnold, notched a brace and also got an assist to deliver 16 points overall. And in midweek, he was one of the few key Liverpool players who travelled and he scored against his former club, PSV Eindhoven, in a 3-2 loss there for Liverpool. But I think Gakpo is still relatively nailed on for the double. I think he'll start at least one of them, perhaps even both. But Gakpo doesn't have a great record away from home this season. Just the 1 goal, which came against West Ham in a 5-0 victory. Most of his returns, particularly those double-digit hauls, have come at Anfield. But as for my bench, the only disappointment was benching Semenyo once again. I wouldn't be surprised if I bench Semenyo against Liverpool and he returns, and then when I start him in those plum fixtures against Southampton and Wolves, he fails to deliver. That's been a common theme this season, where in the easier games, Semenyo fails to get the returns, and then against the best teams in the country, Semenyo, on many people's bench, ends up getting returns because Bournemouth are a good side. They have been really impressive since October in particular, and they're unbeaten in 12 Premier League matches, I believe, which is a club record for them. Can they extend it against Liverpool? It's going to be very tough, but Semenyo is still a decent asset to start this week. The same goes for Kluivert and Dango Ouattara. As for the rest of my bench, Valdimarsson didn't play as expected. Vandenberg conceded towards the end of the game, which I'm quite happy with because no one likes to see bench points. Semenyo was already bad enough, and Levi Colwill made his return against Man City, but he played very poorly, to say the least. So in the end, I got 71 points with a -4 hit being taken. That's 67 for the game week. And I sold Gabriel and Jackson for Trent Alexander-Arnold and Gakpo. In an ideal world, I would have kept Gabriel and added Trent to my ranks, but that was my only route to buying Trent Alexander-Arnold. By selling Gabriel, I'll likely buy him back in a couple of weeks' time because I think Arsenal defensively are still worth investment despite all their injuries and issues and lack of activity in the transfer market. But let's actually look ahead to some of the prices. Bryan Mbeumo and Trent are projected to rise before the deadline. Trent to 7.4 million and Mbeumo to 7.9 million. And we could see other transfer activity like Cody Gakpo rising yet again, and a few price falls potentially like Levi Colwill to 4.4 million. And that's where things get very interesting with my transfer plans. If I want to buy Jordan Pickford, I would be priced out now because I've got 0.0 million in the bank. So by doing sells to Pickford, I need to make a downgrade now. Earlier in the week, my plan was to make this transfer and also buy Mykolenko for Veltman for a -4 hit. But instead, I might have to sell Levi Colwill to get that 0.1 million needed for Jordan Pickford. But it means a -4 hit being taken. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. That is one set of transfer plans I'm looking at. The alternative for free is to keep sells in goal, but sell Veltman, and this would be no -4 hit, of course. And in both scenarios, I've got 0.0 million left in the bank. Those early price rises for Mykolenko and Pickford priced me out of my original plans to essentially sell Veltman instead of Colwill and then also buy Pickford for sales. I should have bought the England #1 a few weeks ago anyway, with that double gimmick in mind and the new manager bounce of David Moyes. So that was a mistake of mine, but at least some of my recent transfers like Gakpo and Trent have worked out pretty well so far, of course. But this is what I'm leaning towards at the moment, just making one free transfer, keeping sells and not taking that -4 hit. The alternative is having Colwill over Veltman this week, which is slightly better on paper. I think Chelsea could keep a clean sheet against West Ham, although their defence leaves a lot to be desired. And then, of course, having Pickford between the sticks instead of sells. Is it worth a -4 hit? That's going to be a difficult one to determine, and I'll make my final transfers over the coming days. But at the moment, this is how my team would line up, with sells in goal, no double gimmick goalkeeper, and I think Pickford is the best one you can go for. He's by far the best Everton asset overall, by the way, but in order to buy him, it means a -4 hit in my case. And I think Nottingham Forest could keep a clean sheet against Brighton in the early kickoff. The back three would include Trent, Colwill and Mykolenko with these provisional transfer plans because Veltman would be sold instead of the Chelsea centre-back. Now, I do have a decent defender on my bench who's got a difficult fixture, but the attacking threat he always poses could make him actually worth including in my starting 11. But having two double gimmick defenders is absolutely fine here, and I think Trent and Mykolenko are up there amongst the best. I think Mykolenko offers the best value in that Everton defence, but the likes of Jake O'Brien is one to look at, and you've also got Tarkowski and Branthwaite if money is no issue for you, but I simply can't afford them, and Mykolenko makes a lot of sense from my perspective. As for my midfielders, I've got a solid platform with Salah, Palmer, Mbeumo and Gordon, but just the one double gimmick midfielder here. I don't think Everton are really worth including in this position. The likes of Idrissa Gana Gueye, of course McNeil is injured, he would have been one to look at, but I think Salah is already enough. Those of Diaz though, I wouldn't recommend selling him. I think he's got a really high ceiling, and I would not be surprised if he outscores Gakpo in Double Gimmick 24. But speaking of which, I'm going to have Gakpo myself with Chris Wood and Isak. I'm very happy with this attacking line, but it only means one Everton player with a 1 free transfer, and I've got 4 double gimmick players overall for 24, which isn't terrible, and I've only taken a -4 hit in gimmick 23, and ultimately it's still a decent foundation for the double and also in the long term. But for my bench, I've got pretty much similar to what I talked about last week: Valdimarsson, Semenyo, but Robinson this time facing Newcastle away, and Van den Berg. You could argue that Robinson is worth starting over Colwill or Veltman anyway, and that would probably add a bit more credence to your suggestions of just buying Pickford for a -4 hit and sell Colwill instead of Veltman, because both of them are sellable in the coming weeks anyway. I think the likes of Kirkes and Howson will be right on radar for me as I'm looking to double or triple up on the cherries. But with the captaincy, there is no doubt in my mind about it this week. Salah will take the armband and Trent is the vice, and I have ranked the captains in my Transfers video, and I'll provide a definitive list in the deadline stream. But I think Salah is first, Trent second, and Gakpo third this week overall. If you want to go for a single gimmick asset, I think Palmer and Isak are the two standouts in that order as well. And I'll show you expected points right now according to Drafthound. They are quite bullish on those two assets I just mentioned in Palmer and Isak. But Salah, his expected points is absolutely crazy. It's in the double-digit figures, of course, whilst Trent and Gakpo aren't too far behind, of course, and Trent actually has over 10 here. But it's a very decent platform. They don't really recommend selling sells to Pickford, by the way, especially for a -4 hit. But speaking of which, Drafthound is a very good resource. There is a link in the description below, and let's actually delve into what they're suggesting for my transfers. It's not surprising in the slightest that Drafthound are recommending Veltman out for Mykolenko. I think that's a very solid and secure transfer, which makes a lot of sense for my team, adding a doubler for Game Week 24, targeting that Leicester fixture, and Mykolenko could start from time to time in future game weeks, even Crystal Palace away in Game Week 25. But the other suggestions include Chris Wood out for Ndai, which has also crossed my mind, and that could also be another -4 hit that I'm considering, but that's kind of lower down in the pecking order. I'd rather buy Jordan Pickford if I wanted to go for any Everton asset, but taking it for a goalkeeper is less likely to come off than buying a striker. It's just Chris Wood will probably be a transfer back in a couple of weeks' time, especially in preparation for blank Game Week 29 if I decide to navigate that game week without the use of the free hit. They also recommend Colwill out for Lisandro Martinez and Robinson out for Gay, but I'm not too fond about those transfers. I think their top two recommendations are the best ones, Mykolenko or Ndai, but it means Veltman or Chris Wood making way, and of course Nottingham Forest host Brighton in that early kickoff for Double Gameweek 24. And by clicking this optimization tool, this green icon, they recommend Trent as my vice captain, but the bench is pretty much what I've done instead of Colwill and Robinson. So Valdimarsson, Semenyo, Vandenberg and Colwill, they've gone for Trent, Robinson and Veltman in my starting 11. But if I actually make the transfers that I talked about, so Mykolenko in for Veltman, that is pretty much it. The expected points rises to almost 100. 97.2 is very solid. The expected minutes is strong with 95, which of course is influenced by the double game weekers, and the average ownership is 27% at this point of the game week. And it's worth timestamping this. This video is recorded on Thursday. We've got some Europa League games happening tonight. We'll see what happens there. Check out my best wildcard team if you haven't already. The same goes for the transfer tips and all my UCL fantasy content for Matchday 8. That was a chaotic deadline stream to say the least, and there will be one for FPL, of course, this weekend. Another website I'd highly recommend is fpl.team, which is completely free. You can visualize future game weeks and also alternative transfer plans, which is what I'm doing in this section. So if I buy Pickford and Mykolenko for a -4 hit and sell Sells and Colwill, I would have nothing left in the bank as discussed before, and both Drafthound and fpl.team recommend starting Robinson over Veltman and Vandenberg. Let me know down in the comment section below if you do the same thing, and also if I keep Colwill in the end and just make one free transfer, would you start Colwill or Robinson in that defensive line? But my backline would be very, very similar. It just has Robinson in there with Trent and Mykolenko and Pickford in goal. The midfield is the exact same with three home players in Mbeumo, Palmer and Gordon. Arguably the three best single game week options this week. I think Mbeumo has a great chance against that Tottenham defence. And then Salah, of course, with that double, both of which are away from home and somewhat difficult fixtures at this moment in time. Gakpo, Chris Wood and Isak would complete the front line, but maybe Chris Wood to Ndai is a very decent short-term punt, but Chris Wood, I think, in the long term is still worth holding on to. My bench would be identical as well, with Valdimarsson, Semenyo, Veltman and Vandenberg, and it's only a matter of time before I start Semenyo once again, and that will be in Game Week 25, where I could bench Anthony Gordon against Man City away, which I'm not particularly pleased about, and ultimately, even if I buy Ndai for Chris Wood or not, I will have a benching headache in Game Week 25. I wouldn't want to bench any of those forwards. The same goes for the midfielders, and leaving Anthony Gordon out isn't ideal, but compared to Semenyo, Palmer, Mbeumo, Salah, Gakpo, Chris Wood and Isak in Game Week 25, I think it makes a little bit of sense. The defensive line is absolutely fine for that game week. Maybe I can start Veltman or Vandenberg over Mykolenko and not double up on Everton defensively, but that's only if I take that -4 hit and sell Sells in this case. Otherwise, I'd be quite happy to start Mykolenko anyway and have that one Everton defender against Crystal Palace. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Our aim is to get this to the 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards new goals like 32,000 subscribers. Follow me on X, Instagram and Blue Sky, DylanRCM and FPL Dylan. That's the way you can find me. And also join the Discord server, FPL League. Check out Drafthound and also my Spotify. I appreciate all the support over the last few weeks in UCL Fantasy and FPL. Thank you very much, of course. We're looking to reach new goals in 2025, and I'll see you very soon for that deadline stream.